Hey everyone, welcome to 3 Beers Deep for Monday, March 30th. This is my weekly Q&A show in which you guys get to ask me questions and I come up with some bumbling answers every Monday. You can listen to the video version or watch the video version of this on my YouTube channel at youtube.com/PatrickKlubik, and you can also listen to the podcast version on inventory management. And there's a version of that on iTunes, and there is plenty of other stuff and other ways to download it and stream it and grab RSS feeds at inventorymanagement.simplecast.fm. But with that all in mind, let's move on to your questions for this week. And yes, we now live in a world in which I have both A, finished Bloodborne, did so about an hour ago, and B, the X-Files is coming back. Those two things are still true and still very exciting. So, having a beer to celebrate my victory, in which the hunt is not quite over. There is more to do, and I will be doing New Game Plus and streaming that out for folks to watch in the near future. But I can finally stop staying up till 3 a.m. every night trying to finish that game because I have now finished it. And you can look forward to my complete thoughts on Kotaku.com later this week. I still need to poke around the Chalice dungeons and do a little bit more, but I think I kind of have a grasp on what that game is and how I feel about it, and I just need to let that settle a little bit and then put that into words that hopefully you will enjoy and read. So we'll talk a little bit more of that later, and we do have some questions related to the Souls series here in the Q&A this week. So let's get right into it after I take a sip. Hi, Patrick. This is Eric. And here's a question for 3 Beers Deep. There are a lot of video game websites that focus on pretty much every aspect of the video game industry. They post previews, reviews, news articles, and videos about every genre. But I think that if you want to stand out online, you should definitely find a niche and that hasn't been explored yet. If you were 10 or 15 years younger and you wanted to start a blog or YouTube channel that focused on one particular aspect of the industry, what kind of content do you think you'd be interested in covering? And what do you think of some of the video game subgenres or communities that haven't been explored yet and have a lot of potential? You know, I mean, the thing that I tell a lot of folks these days when they ask, hey, how can I get a job writing about games? How can I try and do what you do? You know, it is exactly what Eric is pointing out, which is to try and find an area of coverage in which you have a specialty or could develop a specialty and thus could stand out from the crowd. It used to be that, hey, if you're just a great writer and you like video games, maybe you've got a shot. And that still is true, right? Like plenty of writers that are just all around great critics or have insightful things to say can claw their way up through the ranks, but it's extremely difficult. And as there is more and more media consolidation, it means that there are just fewer and fewer jobs for people, and so those jobs tend to go to the people who are already established. You know, folks like myself. I understand that as a form of privilege in which I am allowed the chance to continue to hold jobs in which I, get health insurance and a decent paying wage, in which they're going to continue to take not a chance on new people and go with folks like myself. So if you want to claw your way up, or if you want to find your own little section, you do need to find out what is your voice and what can you speak to that other people don't. One of the ways that, if you want to be pragmatic about it, people are looking for esports coverage. Esports is going to continue to get bigger and bigger, and folks like myself, dinosaurs like myself, don't know how to cover it. It's a specialty. It requires hours and hours, hundreds of hours of investment, thousands of hours of investment. And what's going to be important if there are reporters out there that are able to contextualize and package esports coverage in a way that is digestible to the average person, in which your expertise allows you to explain it to a person like me and make it interesting. There's going to be money to be made there. There are going to be spots open for folks. It's just a matter of, is that something you want to take up? Is that something that you're interested in learning about? But hey, if you're looking for a way in, esports is getting people paid, and there just aren't that many people that are qualified to write about it. Oh, if I was to do it over, I guess, if I'm to think about the other part of that question, I'm not sure. It's hard to think about what you would do differently when I'm pretty happy with the current career that I have. But I think maybe horror games. Maybe that would have been something that I doubled down on and just went whole hog into, that being my specialty and seeing if I couldn't kind of carve something out there. Papa Javes asks, the blink mechanic from Dishonored, greatest stealth mechanic ever? I do think that it solves one of the fundamental, maybe not problems, but one of the things that comes up when you play games like Dishonored or Deus Ex, in which you're trying to explore, but getting over to those ledges, getting around is sometimes kind of a pain in the ass. And oftentimes these are basically crouch simulators in which, because we often play them stealthy, you find yourself laying on the ground all the time, and then it makes it even more difficult to get to your destination. And so what the blink mechanic does is say, hey, we know where you want to go. How about we just get you there really quickly? And I love it, and I desperately hope that they're working on a Dishonored 2. I think right alongside sort of the Souls games. Like, if there's anything I look forward to, it's something along those lines in Deus Ex or Dishonored, and the idea that we could possibly in the next 2 years be getting a sequel to Deus Ex, which they've already said they're working on, and a sequel to Dishonored, which seems likely that Bethesda is going to task them with Arcane with doing that. It'd be very, very excited because I think Dishonored had some problems. Its storyline really didn't go anywhere, but I liked the world it's set up, and I think they could do some really interesting stuff with the mechanics if they were given another go at it. And I feel the exact same way about Deus Ex Human Revolution, although I think the story in Human Revolution was perhaps a little more interesting. Both of those were just great first attempts by teams that I think have a ton of potential to do super interesting things down the line. So fingers crossed that we're getting both of those. Moreo says, having liked the 3 most recent games directed by Hidetaka Miyazaki, he's speaking about the Souls games, have you played or have any interest in the first 2 games he directed? Those are Armored Core 4 and Armored Core 4 Answer, the first 2 of the series on PS3 and 360, and in my opinion, the most streamlined and generally the 2 best. Absolutely. I think, generally speaking, I'd love to go back and learn a little bit more about From Software, and specifically about Bloodborne designer Hidetaka Miyazaki, and, you know, how exactly I go about doing that. You know, I loaded up King's Field. I kind of want to see what King's Field is all about, if we're going to go all the way down the well and see sort of, you know, if we've played Bloodborne and seen what the latest From Software has to offer, where did they begin? Because, you know, folks have told me consistently that, you know, you can see the lineage of the Souls games in previous games created by From Software. Now, you may not, you know, literally see sort of a connective tissue, but you can kind of get a thematic and a design methodology that you can understand how From Software eventually ended up where they are currently with the Souls games and with Bloodborne. So yeah, I'm absolutely interested in going back, and how exactly we do that, I don't know. If people have any interest or any recommendations, please let me know, because yeah, I would love to know a little bit more about that company. Anonymous asked, the blood vial system is pretty awful, right? He's referring to Bloodborne. This is the first Souls game I've ever felt the need to grind. Oh, ran out of blood vial stock. Better go spend an hour killing easy enemies near the start of the game before I can start having fun again. I'm enjoying everything else about the game, but holy shit. I will say that, yes, there were some hiccups in the game. I think the moments in which the pacing slows is both when you have to grind either for bullets or blood vials, or... what's the other one? What's the other moment in which I've kind of felt like it slowed down? I had it in my head and then it just kind of vanished. But you know, to your point, I do think it is kind of bothersome. I don't know why the game can't just every single time that you spawn back into the world, that you reach a lantern, that they should just stock you with 20. I don't really understand the motivating factor behind asking the player to grind for that. You know, I suppose you could make the argument that, hey, if you're running out of blood vial, if you literally have nothing available, it's possible you should probably take a break from whatever you're doing. Maybe you're just banging your head against a boss that you need to give a little space to, that you need to kind of breathe on exactly what you should be doing rather than obsessing over fighting them over and over again. So I think that might explain why it's there. But I am with you in that there would be kind of frustrating moments when I was just trying to learn out a boss and I was trying to determine my strategy for him, and it's like, okay, well, I used 10 blood vials. Now I guess I need to go spend 20 minutes going through Central Yarnum so I can round up a bunch of vials and then use my spare souls to buy like 6 more and then do that a couple of times. That is absolutely frustrating. But I think it's an interesting system. You know, essentially it's kind of a, you know, it's much more Demon Souls than Dark Souls or Dark Souls 2, but I'm also okay with the fact that they're kind of splitting off into their own path. But, you know, one thing with the bullets, you know, was a tip that I picked up on Twitter today was that, hey, if you're running out of those, remember that if you hit up on the D-pad, you'll get 5 of them that are sort of infused by your blood, and your health goes down the same way that if you were attacked by an enemy. So if you hit up, you'll get 5 bullets, and then if you would attack an enemy nearby, you can get that health back. So, you know, that's a way in which you can kind of keep stock up on the bullets without worrying so much about using them. Anonymous asks, do you think now that the new Zelda game got delayed to 2016, bummer, that we'll be running into a Twilight Princess situation where that game comes out on both Wii U and NX? You know, I guess it's possible. We just don't know what NX is. NX could be a series of mobile platforms that has a connection to the TV, or there's a dummy box that just shoots the video out. There's a controller that you sit down with, or maybe you use the mobile device as the controller. I think there's a lot of things we don't know about NX in which we can't really satisfyingly answer that question, let alone really, or I guess we can't really speculate about it, let alone answer it would be the right way to phrase that. But nonetheless, I think you're right that we may potentially run into some weird situations with the Wii U and the 3DS with the NX, but it's also possible that what we see in 2016 could be far off. You know, it's not necessarily that they announce at E3 2016 and then it comes out fall of 2016. I guess it's possible, but you know, unfortunately, we just don't know that much about what direction they're headed in. But you know, with the next Zelda game, I like what Aonuma said. If you haven't read his statement, there's one on Facebook on Nintendo's page, and essentially he says that one of the things they've been experimenting with is, you know, sort of these new design goals in the open world environment, and what they've discovered as a result of doing that has made them so excited that they want to spend more time with it, and that's exciting. I'd love to see them spend more time with it. There's plenty of games coming out this year. I don't necessarily need to see Zelda crammed in there. I just think it's funny that Nintendo tried to say that Zelda was coming out this year, because there was no way it was coming out this year. It just never seemed likely. That's a tasty beverage. Mikamonon says, "Hey Patrick, did you ever get a chance to play Silent Hill: The Book of Memories on Vita? It was recently on a big discount on the PSN store in Europe, and I picked it up, and holy crap! Thought the sequels Pass Forward played loose with the Silent Hill mythology, but nothing compared to this WayForward developed dungeon crawler. I have not. It sounds interesting, though, because the fact that they made a Silent Hill dungeon crawler and that WayForward, a company known primarily for making sort of wild, beautiful 2D action games, made a Silent Hill game, it makes me want to try it. But no, I have not actually touched it, so unfortunately I cannot provide any sort of insight or commentary. Anonymous asks, Patrick, I'm starting to think Bloodborne might be the best playing AAA horror game in a long time, if not ever. While playing something like PT is more successful at making you not want to play the game, I'm actually realizing I'm really creeped out by the world of Bloodborne and feel real dread at uncovering more dark truths about it. Would you be interested, or would be really interested in your thoughts on Bloodborne and its place in the genre of horror games? Souls difficulty may be the perfect evolution of survival horror. That's a really interesting point. The idea that perhaps the Souls design is an evolution or a moving forward of or a passing of the baton of survival horror. You know, specifically, you know, in which when you amass souls or blood echoes, as they are in Bloodborne, although I'd have trouble ever calling them that, and I probably won't ever call them that until maybe Bloodborne 2. In that, yeah, like there is a real sort of tension in which, as you continue to progress, like, should I go back and level up? But if I go back and level up, then all the enemies come back. And so if all the enemies come back, I got to fight through the area I just did before. And that sounds like a nightmare. I have never been actually scared playing Bloodborne in the traditional sense. You know, usually when I speak of being scared, you know, I think of, you know, actually being terrified or yelping and, you know, something that PT does. But the Bloodborne never does that. I think there's definitely tension and there's anxiety and there's stress, and those can play into horror. So, I mean, I think it's more that Bloodborne might be kind of a thriller, you know, in which, like, your stress levels are elevated at all times. But there's no time that I was actually legitimately scared when I was going around. But I guess, you know, it's your definition of scared, right? Is it scary to lose 50,000 souls and 3 level ups? Yeah. Is it actually scary in that, you know, it's going to make me question whether I want to leave the lights on at night? Probably not. But your point is well taken. Anonymous asks, Pat, wanted to congratulate you on beating Bloodborne. Thank you. What's the next game you're thinking about jumping into? Pillars? I think he means Pillars of Eternity. Hope all is well. Things are great. Things are so great. I'm going to take a sip. I think the next big game I'm going to play is, in fact, Pillars of Eternity. I've heard a lot of great things from my colleagues at Kotaku. I'm getting hit on by this light. Hold on. I got to... Fixing. Whoa. That didn't fix it. Okay. Don't have a glare in my eye anymore. But yes, I think Pillars of Eternity is going to be my next big game. I don't think I'm going to stream that or anything like that. But I do kind of want to poke around with that because I really enjoyed Divinity Original Sin. I didn't really play CRPGs when I was growing up. I mostly played JRPGs, you know, Chrono Trigger, Breath of Fire, things of that nature. But I'd love to dive into Pillars because I feel, you know, it's sort of, it feels like an artifact, you know, lost out of time, that obviously it was only created because fans wanted it. They willed it into the world with their money, and then Kickstarter allowed it to happen and Obsidian to build it. So, my time with Divinity has suggested to me, based on talking to other folks, that Pillars of Eternity is up my alley, and it is something that I could play and probably do pretty well at. So I do intend to play that, and that is probably my next big game. I want to go back. I have to play catch-up on some other stuff that I put to the side while Bloodborne was kind of dominating my psyche. And the reason that was kind of the case was because I found that if I tried to play other games while playing Bloodborne, I just thought about Bloodborne and felt that I should go back to Bloodborne. So Bloodborne just became the only thing I did for almost a full 2 weeks. And now that's out of my system, I need to catch up on Life is Strange. I need to play the 2 Game of Thrones episodes that came out that I have not touched. I never finished the first episode of Tales from the Borderlands. I didn't play Ori and the Blind Forest. There's a lot that I need to catch up on, but I'm really looking forward to it. And I need just a tonal opposite from Bloodborne, and I think something like Ori and the Blind Forest. Axiom Verge comes out this week, and I'm very excited about that. I've had a copy for 2 weeks, and I haven't been able to play it. Yes, I do plan to play a bunch of other stuff, and one of those includes Pillars. Chick Digger 802, which is a really fantastic username. I'm going to cheers to you in your username. As a follow-up to the gameplay is king question from the last video/podcast, what is your opinion on how important gameplay is overall for a game's package? There does seem to be a trend of open-world games with tons of atmosphere and immersion, yet mediocre to average gameplay, which is mentioned in reviews, scoring highly and winning a bunch of awards. Not saying it's a good or bad thing, but it does seem like how does the game make me feel is more important than how the game plays. I think that's probably true, right? So I think, a great example of this is Skyrim, right? Or just Bethesda games in general, I think would qualify for a lot of this. And that I don't think the combat in Fallout 3 is particularly great after the first 10 hours. I don't think the combat in Skyrim is particularly great after the first 10 hours. And that didn't stop either of those games from being not only some of my favorite games ever, but my favorite games from those respective years. The world and the mission design and the exploration and everything in those games, but specifically what they do with their open worlds, is what I found interesting. And though, would it be cooler if, and would the games benefit from stronger combat that held up over the long term? Absolutely. Would I love to kind of play a game with a combat system like the Souls games set in an open world structure? Abso-fucking-lutely. I would love a game like that. And it's possible that maybe The Witcher moves in that direction, right? So you have Bethesda building, games with more interesting, varied, dynamic, competent combat, while also having already nailed the open world stuff. And then you have a company like CD Projekt Red, who have made fairly linear RPGs with fantastic and epic scopes, but with Witcher 3 are very much moving in more of a Skyrim direction, in which there's more of an open world and systemic AI kind of playing out with the characters' engagement in it. And so whether it's a bad trend that games are highly acclaimed despite having quote-unquote bad gameplay, I think it's tough to narrow down, because what exactly do you mean by the gameplay, right? So is that purely the combat? Does that not include exploring the world and how you feel about that, and seeing the randomness play out in the midst of AI interacting with each other and you deciding to play a role in that? Like, that all is gameplay, and I think that's why the term gameplay is sort of a problematic, just because it's so vague that it kind of can fit whatever you want it to. And so sort of, again, like the is this a game or games as art argument, it's kind of best to just not worry about it too much. It's like, did you enjoy this experience? Why did you enjoy this experience? That's what's more important than any one element, and whether it sort of holds up or doesn't hold up. Anonymous asks, not knowing how the business works at all, I'll ask this question. Was being a writer at Kotaku while still being a video personality at Giant Bomb ever a possibility? It was not, unfortunately. Those are 2 full-time jobs. I hope to collaborate with Giant Bomb in the future to do some videos with them. I had hoped to do some stuff in New York when I was out there a couple of months back, but unfortunately their studio wasn't built yet, so there just was not a way to do that. But I think it's not the last time I'll do anything with Giant Bomb. But insofar as your dream scenario of being a writer and a video personality at 2 different sites, it just was not in the cards. But I'm enjoying doing stuff like this on YouTube and communicating with you guys and building my own separate audience. It's been really exciting, and I've certainly appreciated all the support over the past couple of months. I hope you guys have enjoyed it too. How great would it be, Anonymous asks, if they brought in Darren Morgan or Vince Gilligan to do an episode for the new mini-season of The X-Files? Yeah, it seems like they're playing coy right now with who exactly is coming back. Frank Spotnitz, who is one of the main producers, writers on the original X-Files one, went on to work with Vince Gilligan, who was one of the head writers on The X-Files, and they both went to go work on Breaking Bad. I'd love it if Vince Gilligan could spare some time to work on The X-Files, but he's got a show on CBS, he's got Better Call Saul, and he's a man very much in demand. But if he could somehow spare the time to work on an episode of The X-Files, it would warm my heart, because clearly the man has come a long way as a writer and a creator, and to have him come in and you kind of do a little bit with this revival, I think would be absolutely fantastic. Do I think it's going to happen? Probably not, but man, we can definitely dream. Anonymous asks, do you think the current wave of video game horror characters, Slender Man, Freddy Fazbear, have staying power? The games seem to be looked upon as a fad, but in a couple of years, will they still be recognizable as noteworthy horror figures? Maybe not on the same level as the classic monsters or Jason, but somewhere around a Pinhead or a Chucky at least. I don't like the way that you're talking about Pinhead there. I consider Pinhead to be a iconic horror character, even if he is not revered nor as popular as Jason Voorhees or Freddy Krueger. But Pinhead deserves your respect. And I'm actually kind of excited because when they announced Jason Voorhees was going to be a playable character in Mortal Kombat X, I immediately lamented on Twitter that, man, wouldn't it be awesome if Pinhead was a character, because his entire design and the chains that he has access to seem perfectly equipped for him to be a fighting character right out of the gate. And there was someone from NetherRealm who responded on Twitter and said, hey, we're just getting started, winky face. So crossing my fingers, but I hope that he's hinting that Pinhead is going to be a character in Mortal Kombat X, which, hey, that game's really close too, and I'm very excited to play Mortal Kombat X. I might have to go back and play through, I skipped the last DC game, which the name is Injustice? Gods Among Us? Was that the last one or the one before that? I can't remember, but I skipped that, and I need to go through and play that because I really enjoyed their story modes. As for whether Slender Man and Freddy Fazbear have staying power, probably not. I think they're sort of just, products of their time. Slender Man maybe has a little bit more than Freddy Fazbear, but I don't think we'll be saying much about Five Nights at Freddy's 5 years from now, whereas I think Slender Man is someone who could make a reappearance. But who knows? It's hard to say about legacy when we're in the middle of defining it. So, to be seen. Let's answer one more question. Sweet Cry S2 asks, you're going to be playing Jurassic World, the Lego game? Absolutely. I am so excited for that. I have not played a Lego game in a long time. I briefly tried to play the last Marvel one that was kind of the open world-y sort of thing, but I don't know, played like an hour or two and then kind of put it down. I might pick it up again because the Avengers 2 hype is going to be getting to me really, really soon. So playing that game, Marvel Superheroes, I think is what it's called, that might be a good way to kind of get myself in the mindset for Age of Ultron. But yes, absolutely excited to play the Jurassic World Lego game. I don't know when that's exactly coming out. I hope it's after the movie because they have the events of the movie in the Lego game, and so I wouldn't want to spoil that for myself. But I do intend to play through the whole thing, and it's going to be fun to watch those movies again and play through that and get ready for Jurassic World, which I'm now on a media blackout for. I refuse to watch any more trailers. I refuse to watch any more images. I don't want to see anything about that movie until I sit my butt in the seat at midnight and hopefully be excited, but I try and keep my expectations realistic, which is to say low, and maybe it won't be any good. But fingers crossed, it could be awesome. It could be awesome. But that is going to do it for 3 Beers Deep for this week. If you'd like to submit a question in the future, go to patrickklepek.tumblr.com. I will also accept questions over email, patrick.klepek@kotaku.com. If you would like to listen to this, if you are watching this on YouTube, there is a podcast version. You can go to Inventory Management on iTunes. If you leave a review, I would really appreciate it. It helps other people discover the podcast in the future. If you don't use iTunes, if you use other services, if you go to inventorymanagement.simplecast.fm, you can stream the episodes, you can download the episodes, and then an RSS link that you can plug into any other podcast app or in your Android phone or your Windows phone, and you should be able to grab the episodes no problem. So that does it for this week. I'll see you guys next week.